My dad has the most eclectic music taste of anyone that I've ever met. Like, I would get into the car one day and he would be playing Mariah Carey, and I would get in the next day and he'd be playing Bill Frisell, and he loved them both the same. And I will never forget coming home from school and walking into my house and hearing Extraordinary Machine by Fiona Apple. And my dad had taken the CD out of the library because it was her first album in like 7 years, and I didn't know it at the time, but my parents had been huge Fiona Apple fans. And I remember walking up to the stereo and just taking the CD case and sitting just like this on the ground in front of the stereo with the CD booklet and just sitting there for the entire duration of the album reading along with all of the lyrics, because I was so astonished at what she was saying. I remember getting to the end of the booklet and looking at the credits and seeing all songs written by Fiona Apple. And because I hadn't really been cultivating my own musical interests at the time, I didn't really have any concept of people writing music for themselves. I guess what it probably was is that I wasn't really hearing anything that spoke to me personally, and so I was never really curious as to who was the person who was trying to say it. I was listening to it because it was music and because I enjoyed it, and it wasn't that I was listening to it because I felt this personal connection to it. And all of a sudden I felt like this album was just speaking directly to me, and I felt like I needed to know who was telling me these stories. And when I realized that it was the same person who was singing them, it was kind of this very pivotal moment for me, and that was when I started trying to learn how to write. She was a part of my development all the way through, because I actually also did not have an understanding of being able to play and sing at the same time because I was classically trained. I realized that it was really difficult to play the piano and to sing at the same time, and I couldn't just sit down and do it. I remember taking my little purple boombox that I had in my room that I used to listen to all of her CDs on and putting in When the Pawn, her second album, and the last track on it is called I Know, and it's really, really simple. I just thought, if I can learn how to play this, then I will be okay. And I would just sit there with the CD player and I would play it, and I would just listen, and I would try and find the note on the piano, and I would just be like pressing rewind over and over and over again to get back to the beginning of the track. And I would just sit there for hours every day until I finally could play that song from beginning to end and sing it at the same time. I recorded it, and I think I still actually have the recording of me like playing and singing that song when I was 13 or 14 in my living room. That's still a song that I go back and I play all the time because it's like muscle memory for me now, but it's also kind of like a rewind in its own way. It's kind of like when I'm trying to write or I'm trying to learn something that I'm having a lot of difficulty with, I'll kind of just take a step back and start playing that song. I mean, if you've listened to Fiona Apple, she's unbelievably fragile and unbelievably angry about it. And so that was a unique approach to me, and having her there was this really, really big solace for me. Like, a lot of her songs are very much like, I hate that I'm feeling this, but I'm gonna feel it, and fuck you for judging me for it because I fucking hate it too. Fiona Apple was just sort of this thing that came to me in this really pivotal time and then left for a really long time. It was really interesting, the relationship that I ended up having with the new record, because it was kind of, even though there were a couple of songs that I didn't necessarily understand, I mean, that happens with a lot of things, but I was just so, I mean, this record was kind of like a lifeboat for me, because it was, I don't even care because she's back. I wasn't not listening to her when she wasn't touring or she wasn't recording, but it felt very different. It felt like I missed her. When I was listening to the records, I missed her. I didn't understand the hate part of the relationship. I just had this very sort of melancholy, like, I really love you and you aren't here and I don't understand why, but I still love you. And then she came back and I was like, now I get it. You left, and that's why I hate you. But also, I still can't hate her because every single song that she writes just like hits right here. What's so unique about her is the fact that she releases material so infrequently. Every single thing that she puts on there is something that is ready to be on there. She writes when she has something to say, and she writes it the way that she wants to say it, and that's it. It's done, and it's going on there. And her ability to craft a message is really, really powerful. I love hearing stories about her as a person and personal experiences, but listening to the songs that are stories about her relationships with other people, you actually almost feel like you're intruding. I really, really appreciated that she had been willing to put that moment in the world for other people to experience, because it was so special for me to feel like she was sharing something that was a part of her, but also that I genuinely felt like was a part of me. There are other things that are very constant for me, and Fiona Apple is much less constant, but when she does come back, she's more important than everything else. I'm not the only person who has had this reaction to her music. I mean, she's got a fan base because people hear her music and it really, really relates to them, because there are a lot of people who are in similar situations to her, or even if they aren't, who just are in similar, like, emotional capacities to hers. I know her because everything that is in her music is so clearly just her, and that's really special.